Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive.
Oh, this should be a good one.
I think so too. We've got a really interesting topic today. It's all about expressive writing,
Ah, yeah.
and specifically the Pennebaker protocol.
Right.
You guys sent in a ton of stuff on this, studies, blog posts, personal stories.
It seems like people are really interested in this.
Yeah, they really are. And I think there's a good mix in there of wanting to understand the science behind it, but also like how it works in real life.
Yeah, definitely. I've noticed that too.
So our big question for this deep dive is, does this actually work? Like, does getting all your thoughts and feelings out on paper really make a difference?
It's a great question, and I think we need to be careful not to oversimplify it.
Okay, yeah. So, like, is it a miracle cure or is there something more to it?
Right. It's probably more nuanced than just saying, write about your problems and everything will be better.
Okay, that makes sense.
But that said, there is some pretty compelling research out there on the Pennebaker protocol. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. And it's not just like casual journaling, right?
No, it's much more structured than that.
Yeah.
It focuses specifically on processing intense experiences, often traumatic ones.
So it's not just like writing about your day or what you had for breakfast.
Right. It's about really digging deep and confronting those difficult emotions and experiences.
Wow. So then how did this whole thing even get started? Like, how did Pennebaker even come up with this protocol?
Well, it actually started with a bit of a serendipitous discovery.
Really?
Yeah, his initial research wasn't actually focused on writing at all.
Okay.
He was studying the health impacts of keeping traumatic secrets.
Interesting.
In one study, he asked a large group of students about various life experiences.
Okay.
And one of the questions, almost accidentally, was about whether they had experienced a traumatic sexual experience before the age of 17.
Wow. That's a pretty sensitive topic.
Yeah, they
I
did.
imagine some people might have been hesitant to answer that honestly.
Absolutely. And Pennebaker acknowledged that. But what he found was really surprising. The students who answered yes to that question, they reported more physical health symptoms, more frequent doctor visits.
Oh, wow. So like their physical health was actually worse.
Exactly. And this wasn't just a one-off finding.
Okay.
Through interviews and follow-up studies, it became clear that it wasn't the trauma itself that was causing the health problems.
What was it then?
It was the act of keeping it a secret.
So like holding those experiences inside was actually linked to negative health outcomes.
Exactly. It's like that old saying, a burden shared is a burden halved. Keeping those traumatic experiences bottled up can really take a toll on our well-being.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when you think about the emotional weight of carrying those secrets around.
Right, it's exhausting.
Okay, so Pennebaker finds this link between keeping secrets and negative health outcomes.
Yep.
So then what? Like, what did he do with that information?
Well, that's what led him to start exploring ways to help people process those experiences.
So instead of keeping them bottled up, how to, like, let them out?
Right, but talking about these deeply personal traumas, it can be incredibly difficult.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It's not always easy to find someone you trust enough to share those things with.
And even if you do, there's that fear of judgment, right? Like, what if they don't understand or they say the wrong thing?
Exactly. It's a really vulnerable thing to do.
So it sounds like writing might offer a solution there, right?
Exactly. That's what Pennebaker thought.
So he's like, hey, maybe instead of talking, people should try writing about these experiences.
Precisely. Because writing provides that safe, private space
Okay.
where you can explore those emotions without those external pressures.
So it's like having a conversation with yourself on paper.
That's a great way to put it.
But did it actually work? Like, did people actually see improvements in their health or well-being?
This is where it gets really interesting. Pennebaker's research and tons of studies that followed found a whole range of benefits associated with expressive writing.
Oh, wow. Like, what kinds of benefits are we talking about?
We're talking about fewer doctor visits, reduced stress and anxiety, improved sleep, even a boost in immune function.
Wait, are you serious? Like, just writing about these tough experiences can actually improve your physical health?
That's what the research suggests.
I mean, how does that even work?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And initially, the thinking was that it was all about catharsis, that emotional release.
Oh, okay. So like getting it all out.
Exactly. The idea was that keeping things bottled up was the problem, and writing provided that outlet for those pent-up emotions.
Okay, that makes sense.
But over time, the understanding of how expressive writing works, well, it's evolved.
Okay, so it's more nuanced than just venting.
Yeah.
So what's the current thinking then?
Well, researchers, including Pennebaker himself, started to focus more on the cognitive benefits of writing.
Cognitive.
Yeah, it's not just about getting those emotions out. It's about what happens in our minds as we try to put those experiences into words.
Interesting.
Writing can actually help us make sense of traumatic experiences.
So it's not just about releasing emotions, but trying to understand them.
Exactly. It's about creating a narrative, a story, that helps us make sense of what happened.
I like that.
We impose order on chaos, find meaning, and ultimately integrate those experiences into our personal stories.
That makes a lot of sense. Our brains are always trying to make sense of the world, right? And especially when it comes to trauma, finding meaning can be huge for healing.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Pennebaker and his team discovered something fascinating about the role of what we might consider junk words in predicting positive outcomes from expressive writing.
Junk words, you mean like the and a?
Yes, exactly. Those little words that we don't usually think much about.
But what could those possibly tell us about processing trauma?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Hmm.
But they found that shifts in pronoun use, specifically moving from I to he, she, or they, and then back again, were actually a sign of positive change.
Wait, really? Like how I'm referring to myself or others in the writing?
Precisely.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued now.
It suggests an ability to step back from the experience, to see it from multiple perspectives.
So you're not just stuck in your own head, reliving the trauma over and over.
Right. It's like through writing, you're detaching yourself from the immediacy of the emotion.
And gaining a more objective understanding.
Exactly. It's like creating a space between yourself and the trauma, which can be incredibly powerful for healing.
Wow, that's amazing. But I'm guessing it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, right?
That's a great point, and it leads us to some really important considerations about individual differences. So yeah, not everyone's going to have the same experience with expressive writing.
Oh, okay.
In fact, some people might actually find it makes things worse.
Really?
Yeah, especially those who aren't naturally inclined to, process their emotions verbally.
That makes sense. I guess if you're not someone who typically talks about their feelings, forcing yourself to write about them might not be the best idea.
Exactly.
Could even backfire, maybe?
Right. It ties into this idea of the matching hypothesis.
The matching what?
Hypothesis,
Okay.
which basically says that interventions work best when they align with someone's natural coping styles.
Oh, okay. So, like, if you're someone who already journals or writes in a diary, expressive writing might be a good fit.
Exactly. But if you're more action-oriented or you prefer to talk things out, writing might not be the most effective approach.
So it's all about finding what works for you, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say someone is interested in trying expressive writing. Like, how do they actually do it? What does this Pennebaker protocol look like in practice?
Well, you're in luck. One of the sources you sent in actually has a really good overview of the protocol.
Really? Which one?
It's a blog post from Growing Roots Mental Health and Wellness.
Perfect. So what are the key elements?
So typically it involves a series of writing sessions
Okay.
over consecutive days.
So like every day for a week or something?
Yeah, usually it's for a few days, and each session lasts about 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, not too bad.
And the focus is on writing about your deepest thoughts and feelings regarding a specific event or topic.
So you picked something specific to write about,
Right.
not just whatever's on your mind at that moment.
Yeah, exactly. And the prompts encourage introspection and emotional expression.
But you're not trying to write a novel or anything, right?
Exactly. The key is to write freely
Oh,
without worrying about grammar, spelling, structure.
so just let it all out.
Precisely. And remember, this writing is for you and you alone.
Oh, yeah, that's important. Like, no one else has to see this.
Exactly. So don't hold back. Let those emotions flow.
That sense of privacy is crucial, especially when you're dealing with, like, really personal stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what kind of prompts are we talking about?
Well, the blog post gives some examples, like writing about a traumatic event from your past,
Okay.
exploring its impact on your life, or reflecting on your deepest fears or desires.
That's pretty heavy stuff.
It can be, yeah.
But ultimately, you get to choose what you write about.
Right. It's your personal journey.
Okay, so I pick a topic, set a timer for 15 minutes, and just start writing.
Pretty much.
Hmm.
But the blog post also outlines a few helpful steps.
Oh, okay, like what?
Well, first, you want to make sure you choose a topic that feels emotionally significant to you.
Okay, something that really matters.
Right. And then, as we discussed, the key is to write freely and continuously for the entire session.
Oh,
Don't censor yourself. Don't try to make it sound good.
got it. Just let it all flow.
Exactly. And then after you finish writing,
Okay.
take a few moments to reflect on your experience.
Okay, so, like, think about how the writing made me feel.
Exactly. Did you gain any new insights? How might you apply those insights to your life moving forward?
That's a good point. It's not just about venting, it's about actually learning something from the experience.
Precisely. And one of your sources, an article from this journaling app called Emote,
Okay.
really emphasizes those cognitive benefits of expressive writing.
Okay.
It explains that writing helps us construct a narrative, a story,
Okay.
that helps us make sense of those traumatic experiences.
It's like we're trying to create order out of chaos, right?
Exactly. Our brains are always looking for patterns, for meaning.
And if we don't actively process those difficult events, they can just keep swirling around in our heads.
That's right.
And writing can help us, like, put them into a box and file them away.
In a way, yes. It allows us to create a coherent story and ultimately gain some closure.
That makes a lot of sense. And I remember that study we talked about earlier
Which one?
about the junk words
Oh, yeah.
predicting positive outcomes.
That's some really fascinating research.
So remind me again what was so significant about those little words.
So people who showed the most improvement after expressive writing,
Okay.
they tended to shift their pronoun use over time.
Okay.
They started by using I a lot, focused on their own perspective and emotions.
Okay.
But then they would start using he, she, or they,
Oh,
more
okay, interesting.
indicating a shift to seeing the situation from other perspectives.
So it's like they're stepping outside of themselves.
Exactly. And then eventually they would cycle back to I.
So they come back to their own experience, but with a new understanding.
Precisely. That ability to see things from multiple angles is key to processing those emotions and moving forward.
It's not about denying your own feelings, it's about expanding your understanding.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about the potential benefits of expressive writing.
We have.
But are there any downsides? Like, are there things people should be aware of before they try this?
Yeah, that's a really important question because like any intervention, there are potential downsides to consider.
Oh, okay, like what?
Well, one of your sources, an article from the Change Companies, highlights some of the challenges.
Okay.
They point out that while many people experience positive benefits from expressive writing,
Okay.
some people might feel saddened or depressed after writing.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, especially in the first day or two.
So it's not always a positive experience right away.
Not necessarily. Confronting those difficult emotions, even on paper, it can be tough.
That makes sense.
But the article emphasizes that this sadness is usually temporary
Okay, good.
and often outweighed by the long-term benefits.
So it's like you might feel worse at first, but it gets better over time?
Right.
Are there other things people should be aware of?
Timing is important.
Timing.
Yeah,
Like when you choose to do the writing.
exactly. Pennebaker's research suggests that the best time to write about an emotional upheaval
Okay.
is when you feel like you're thinking about it too much,
Oh.
when it's consuming your thoughts and interfering with your daily life.
So if something just happened, it might not be the best time to dive into expressive writing.
That's what the research suggests, yeah.
Give yourself some time to process first.
Exactly.
And one of our other sources, the Guide on Therapeutic Journaling from the VA's Whole Health Library,
Right.
they echo that caution.
They do.
They specifically advise against writing about a massive trauma for several weeks afterward.
Because it might be too overwhelming emotionally.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So it sounds like patience and self-compassion are key here.
Absolutely. Listen to your own needs and don't pressure yourself to write about something before you're ready.
Okay, so we talked about timing. Are there any situations where expressive writing might not be recommended at all?
Yeah, the VA guide mentions a few situations where it might be contraindicated,
Contraindicate.
meaning it's not a good idea.
Okay.
Like for individuals who are not naturally expressive.
Oh, right. We talked about that.
Yeah, or those with severe trauma histories
Okay.
or certain psychiatric disorders.
So it's really important to be mindful of your own needs and circumstances.
Exactly. One size does not fit all.
And it sounds like safety and self-care are really important when it comes to expressive writing.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
The VA guide really emphasizes that.
Oh.
If you experience strong negative feelings while writing and you can't cope,
Okay.
you need to stop immediately.
Stop writing.
Yes. And engage in some soothing self-care practices.
Okay, so it's not about pushing yourself to the point of overwhelm.
Right. It's about finding a healthy balance.
That's a great reminder. What about if someone finds themselves writing about the same traumatic event over and over again? Is that a sign that something's wrong?
Not necessarily, but it's something to be mindful of.
Okay.
The VA guide advises against writing about the same topic day after day for too many days
Why is that?
because it can become counterproductive.
Oh, I see. So you're not supposed to just dwell on the past.
Right. It's about processing those experiences, gaining a new understanding, and finding a path toward healing and growth.
Not getting stuck in those negative thought patterns.
Exactly.
So expressive writing is a tool for self-discovery, not self-punishment.
That's a great way to put it. And something that struck me in several of these sources
Yeah.
was this emphasis on finding what works for you.
That's so important. Like what resonates with one person might not work for another.
Right. It's about experimenting, being curious, and finding your own unique path to healing and self-expression.
And speaking of finding what works, several of the sources also mentioned alternative ways to engage in expressive writing. Oh, interesting. Like what?
Beyond just the traditional Pennebaker protocol.
Right. One of your sources, an article from Psychology in Action,
Okay.
mentions that Pennebaker himself encourages people to explore different approaches to writing.
So it's not about rigidly adhering to a specific protocol.
Exactly. It's about adapting it to your own needs and preferences.
I like that.
Mm.
So what are some of these alternative approaches?
Well, that same article mentions that some people find it helpful to just write in a journal regularly,
Okay.
not just when dealing with a specific traumatic event.
Oh, I see. So just like a daily check-in with yourself.
Yeah. It can be a way to process your daily emotions,
Okay.
work through challenges, gain a deeper understanding of yourself.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Journaling can be really powerful for self-reflection.
Absolutely. And another article, the one from the Change Companies,
Okay.
they suggest using expressive writing prompts in the waiting room before therapy sessions.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Like as a way to prepare for therapy? Exactly. They found that clients were often more focused and ready to engage in therapy
Okay.
after taking those 10 minutes to write about their most pressing issues.
It's like using writing to prime your mind.
Exactly. And it just highlights the versatility of expressive writing.
You can use it in so many different ways.
Right. It can be adapted to different needs and goals.
So the key takeaway is that expressive writing can be a powerful tool for emotional well-being.
Absolutely.
But it's important to find what works for you.
Right.
Experiment with different approaches.
Yep.
Listen to your own needs.
And don't be afraid to seek guidance if needed.
That's excellent advice. Which leads us to our final reflection question for this deep dive.
Okay.
We've learned about the science, the methods, the benefits, and the cautions.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But now it's time to turn the lens inward. So now I'm curious, if you were to try expressive writing, what comes to mind? What kind of event or experience would you choose to explore through writing?
That's a great question, and it really gets to the heart of why we do these deep dives,
Yeah.
to give you the information you need to decide if it's something you want to try.
Exactly. And like we've been talking about, there's no right or wrong answer here.
Right.
If you're someone who processes their emotions through words, then expressive writing might feel really natural to you.
Yep.
But if you're a little more reserved with your feelings, that's totally fine too. The important thing is to be aware of your own tendencies and how they might influence your experience with expressive writing.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you.
And that's what's so cool about this deep dive. You now have all this knowledge to decide if it's something you want to pursue.
I hope so.
And if you do want to give it a try, several of your sources offer some great guidance on how to get started.
Oh, yeah, they do.
For example, the VA's Whole Health Library has detailed instructions on therapeutic journaling,
Right.
including a step-by-step guide to the Pennebaker protocol.
And that blog post from Growing Roots Mental Health and Wellness.
Yeah.
Remember that one? It breaks down the key elements of the protocol and even offers tips on how to create a safe and supportive writing environment.
That's so important. And for those who prefer a more structured approach, the Emote article suggests using their app for guided journaling prompts and tracking your progress.
Oh, yeah, that's a great resource.
There are so many options out there.
It's really amazing to see how much more accessible expressive writing has become.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the growing recognition of how important emotional processing is for our well-being.
But even with all these resources available, it's still crucial to approach expressive writing with self-awareness and respect for your own emotional boundaries.
Absolutely.
And if you're going through something really difficult or you're struggling with a lot of emotional distress,
Yeah,
it's always a good idea to reach out to a qualified therapist.
definitely. Professional support can be so helpful.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into expressive writing.
Wow, that went by fast.
It really did. I hope everyone listening feels empowered to explore the potential of expressive writing for themselves.
Me too.
And remember, the journey of self-discovery is unique for each of us.
Absolutely.
What matters most is finding what works for you, honoring your own emotional landscape, and embracing the power of words to heal and transform.
Beautifully said. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.